Welcome to today's walk in the land of wisdom. We're in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, looking at verse 15. I thought in my heart, the fate of the fool will overtake me also. What then do I gain by being wise? It goes on to say, I said in my heart, this too is meaningless. For the wise man, like the fool, will not be long remembered, and in days to come both will be forgotten. Like the fool, the wise man too must die. So I hated life, because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things that I'd toiled for under the sun, because I must leave them all to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether he will be a wise man or a fool? Yet he will have control over all the work into which I've poured my effort and skill under the sun. This too is meaningless, and so my heart began to despair. There's a place within us that adjudicates over all our decisions, a place that considers what we're doing and the thoughts that we're thinking and the words we're speaking. It's a place that officiates over the direction of our life. This place the Bible calls your heart. And Solomon begins with, I thought in my heart. And then a little while later he writes, I said in my heart. So there is progression there from a thought in his heart to speaking or a conversation in his heart. Thoughts turn into words, and those words reverberate and are debated in our hearts before eventually finding their articulation. And the text indicates that Solomon is experiencing an ascending crisis of meaning, or there is a progression of meaning or meaninglessness, one way or the other. The text indicates that Solomon is moving from thinking about something to the place where he is having a conversation within his heart about this thing. Your heart will talk to you, so you need to get acquainted with your heart, and that's no easy thing, but it is a simple thing. It's possible to become so simple that you can discern the difference between thinking and talking in your heart. So don't be a stranger to your heart, for out of it flow the well springs of life. The heart thinks. This is different to intellectual or rational thought. Have you ever had a thought that surprised you? You wonder, where did that come from? It seems beyond your intellect, but it's not beyond your heart. We sometimes call them lightbulb moments. And sometimes it's a wise thought, telling you to do this or warning you not to do that. Or sometimes it can be a frightening thought or a foolish thought, and you need to officiate over the thoughts that meander through your mind, discerning and considering whether they're wisdom or folly or madness. And the way to do that is by recognizing the level of light they bring. If there's much light, if the thought lightens your load or makes your path clearer, then it contains wisdom, and you can be sure that it originates in the Spirit of God. But should it be a dark thought, a sinister thought, a harmful thought that makes you feel heavy, then you can recognize that its origins are from the pit of hell. folly is a thing that walks in the shadows. It may not necessarily be evil, but it does direct you away from the light. And so you'll invariably feel its negative effects upon your life. Now, should you recognize either folly or madness in your heart, you need to have a little conversation, a little internal conversation. You got to say something. This is called self-talk. You got to call it out. Tell your heart what you will do. Tell your heart what you will refuse to do. Tell your heart what you will think about. Tell your heart what you will refuse to think about. Don't ignore the thoughts and pretend they're nothing. You got to get a hold of them before they get a hold of you, and dispense with them by bringing them into the light. And then it says, Solomon says, so my heart began to despair. So he goes from thinking to talking within his heart, and then he says that his heart began to despair. And Solomon's thoughts kept dragging him down until he entered a crisis of meaning. You'll not find the capacity to lift your heart out of the mire unless you change the conversation that goes on within you. James says, although ships are large and driven by strong winds, they're steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue. So if you were to speak with me for long enough, then eventually I'd be able to fairly accurately tell you your future based upon what I hear you say, because your tongue is steering your life in a certain direction. After a while, people will let you in on their secrets. Something unexpected will slip out, a sudden outburst of anger or manic laughter or what sometimes people will call a Freudian slip. Something just slips out. Ignore these things at your peril, because behind that outburst is the whole world that people are trying to ignore. A world that will one day erupt with all of the potential to create a mutiny and scuttle the voyage that their life is enjoying or entering into through life. And if you are attached to that person, then not only will they scuttle their own lives, but they will scuttle yours as well. Now, despair can be avoided if you allow God to access and address the words that are running around inside you. These are not intellectual words of the mind, but the felt words of the heart. These things that invariably have a way of exiting through your mouth with outbursts of passion. Jesus said, the things that come out of the mouth come from the heart, and these things defile a man. So despair has its roots in the way we allow certain thoughts to fester in our heart, ruminating upon them and masticating them over and over and over until they become digested and then are part of our nature. So you've got to be vigilant, and you've got to deal aggressively with any thought that might be evil or slanderous or malicious or immoral. All lower thoughts will rob your well-being and eventually have you feeling that life is worthless. Thoughts become words that end in despair. So think about it. If you value life, then you will value words, because with words we bless, and with words we curse, and with words we build our world. God bless you. We'll see you again tomorrow for some more